All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you're dialing in from. Thank you so very much for taking the time to join our action-packed webinar today. We're going to give you all about 1 minute or so to let additional attendees join. We do have a poll popping up on screen. We know it's busy for many people. It's end of quarter for some people. For some people like us here at Novisto, it's end of fiscal. It's also the end of workday for a lot of people as well, depending on where you are. So we're curious, how many tabs do you currently have open on your internet browser? If you're a sustainability professional in the middle of data collection, especially for your S&P CSA, maybe you have a few more tabs open than you normally do. Are you the type of person who can only have one open? Are you the person who has to have all of them open? Do you even know how many you have open? All right, what results do we have, Kate? Let's see what it tells us about our audience. I love it. Some people don't even want to say it's probably too many to mention. It's always exciting when you're working in sustainability that you realize there are certain things that make us all human, regardless of which organization that you're in or how you manage your program. Things like managing the number of your tabs. It just brings us all back to that same baseline. Thanks so very much for that, Kate. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. Thank you so very much for taking the time to join our webinar, the S&P Global CSA, where we're going to hear from a variety of speakers that you're seeing on screen right now. By way of introduction, my name is Rajiv Jalim, and I'm our Global Director of Sustainability Solutions here at Novisto, and I have the extreme honor of being joined by people much smarter and much more experienced than me in the field of completing the S&P Global CSA. I'm being joined by Helena Winberg from Kushtar and Circle K, Natalie Hoffman from Columbia Bank, Viv Gauthier from Novisto, and Robert Darnau from S&P Global. We have an action-packed agenda for you on today's webinar. Before we jump into the meat of it, today's webinar is being recorded, so you will have the slides and recording shared with you after. I also encourage you to use our chat, our question and answer chat at the bottom of your Zoom login. And you can submit questions throughout the webinar where we'll actually be able to respond either in live time or we'll save the questions for dedicated Q&A at the end of the session. So we're going to have Robert set the baseline with S&P, explain to us some of what's happening with the CSA. Then we're going to hear from Viv, who is going to touch on the role of technology in helping organizations to complete their CSA. And then we're going to get into the practitioner level analysis where Helena and Natalie are going to talk to us about their actual experience with preparing responses and how they've been able to streamline their process. So, Robert, I'm going to pass to you to get us going.
Thank you. Thank you, Navisto, for organizing this. Always a pleasure to reach out to companies about the CSA. I want to kick this off with this image. What you see is called a Newton's cradle. Can you stay on the first page for a moment? So you might remember that from school or sitting on somebody's desk in the office. Basically, when you pull one ball back and release it, the energy travels through the entire row of balls, and the one on the far end swings out. It's a symbol demonstration of momentum moving through a system. Nothing is lost. The energy simply travels from one end to the other. And I find that a powerful metaphor for sustainability inside of an organization, because one question we frequently hear is, what's the ROI of sustainability? Where does this whole effort actually pay off? And the truth is, it rarely pays off where it started. A policy for suppliers changes the supplier behavior, better data changes decisions in finance, clear targets reshape operations, and this momentum is building quietly through your organization across functions, across levels, and then at some point it becomes visible as a reduced risk, a lower cost, stronger reputation, better access to capital, or maybe even an entirely new business opportunity. And how does that relate to the CSA? So companies that participate in the CSA often tell us that it helps them create and really accelerate this momentum. and that it helps them to align sustainability and business strategies, to align teams on that, to uncover gaps and turn what was scattered initiatives into a coherent approach. And the CSA is for them like a health check and a benchmarking tool and a catalyst for that action. So today I walk you through the CSA really in a nutshell, and then be followed by the speakers that can explain their experience. So now next slide, please. The CSA was established over 25 years ago in Zurich by a small boutique asset manager, really looking at what drives um, sustainability through an investor lens. So very early on, we were looking not as tree huggers, but really from an investor perspective, where's the value in sustainability? And in that, we go beyond disclosure alone. We look at how is it embedded in strategy, operations, and decision makings, and what is the performance of companies' performance compared to industry peers. If we go to the next slide. We've been doing this for 25 years now, and always on this slide, I'm humbled about the long time participation that we see in companies really being able to provide that value proposition for such a long time. What you see here, the names in bold, are now also the first time companies that reached the 25 years. The others are 26 or 27 years, and we have 3 US companies now joining that circle. What you also see on the right is how participation increased. 4 years ago, 5 years ago now, we were acquired from this boutique asset manager who started us in Zurich by S&P Global. That gave a massive boost to participation. It also gave a boost to how the CSA data and results are used, and the 3,500 companies roughly represent half of the world's market cap as measured by S&P Global's broad market index. If you go to the next slide, we can look at why companies participate. We always ask them not just questions about their sustainability performance, but also why they engage with the CSA. We see as the top reason still the ability to reach investors and have visibility with those investors. The next one is really being able to benchmark yourself and with the results of the CSA, prioritize initiatives to identify gaps and improvement areas against peers, of course, with the aim again to improve your visibility with investors and shine as a top performer on sustainability. And the third motivation is reputation with other stakeholders than financial markets. That could be, of course, internal, your employees that work for a sustainable company, but also your business partners, your maybe supply chain partners, etc. So taken together, this really explains why participation in the CSA continues to grow, because we feed all these three prime motivations. If you go to the next slide, briefly on the cycle, there are three steps: preparation, participation, and publication of results. It begins with the invitations that have been sent now in February and methodology updates, so you know exactly what to expect. Every year, the methodology is changing a little bit because sustainability is a moving target, and we have to move with that. Then you can pick a participation window, a little bit more detail on that later. And the earlier you participate, the earlier you receive your results. We start handing out scores in this cycle in July, and then up until the next window, the next cycle starts in 2027. There will be a continuous release of results, and then that is used for inclusion in indices or also inclusion in S&P Global Sustainability Yearbook, where we distinguish the top performers in each industry to help with that reputation externally. On the next slide, you see how we do this. So this is the online platform that is really designed to make participation as structured and efficient as possible. It's not just spreadsheets and static forms, but it's an intuitive portal This is designed really for ease of navigation. You can bring other people on board. But of course, you can also link to internal platforms or other platforms. We really want to meet our participants where they are. So if you decide to use a platform like Novisto, then there is a seamless integration with that to the CSA portal. It is also a platform where you can access your results. You will have a benchmarking tool, a benchmarking database that you can access where you see your performance against peers. If you want down to the question level, you get access to the assessed version of your questionnaire so that you really see where are your gaps against the CSA methodology that you hopefully then can close in the next cycle. And there is this traffic light system on the left that really helps you understand where you are in the process on each single question. If we move to the next slide, this is a visualization of the CSA. On the most outer ring, you have the data points. They aggregate into question criteria dimensions. And the size of the segments represent the different materiality that we apply in the aggregation process. This is really industry specific, the weights, the importance of these topics in each industry. These are the general criteria that we ask everywhere, but 50% are industry specific. If you move to the next slide, this is a breakdown by 3 different industries. And really the takeaway here is they differ by criteria. So at the bottom, you have criteria that are maybe only in a single industry, like contribution to societal healthcare and pharmaceuticals, or that are cross-industry, but not all, like customer relations, for example. And on the top, you see that the weights can differ substantially with really almost only the standard criteria applying to pharmaceuticals and the lowest weight in the environmental dimension. If you go to the next slide. Something that is also unique to the CSA is that we allow you to provide disclosure that is additional to your public reporting. About a third of the questions that we ask, depending on the industry, are questions where we don't require this to be in the public domain. And that allows you to really paint the most complete picture of your organization and letting us know initiatives you have started, but are maybe not yet ready to be public about, which differentiates your company, of course, from one that hasn't even started anything in this area. Next slide, please. So this is the timeline that I mentioned. We will open the questionnaire tomorrow. So this webcast is very, very timely. Then you can pick 2-month participation windows every 14 days. And if you need a deadline extension, you can get that as well. But as I said, we publish scores starting then July, depending on when you submit. So I'm up against my 10 minutes. If I have one more moment with the next slide, this is another benefit you have. You get an ESG scores report in PDF format that you can share internally. It is the same information that we make available to the investor community on our platforms. And just one word on that, we have clients to the S&P Global scores and data that represent 58 trillion in assets under management. That is a growing client base, up from 35 trillion last year. So you do get this exposure and visibility with the investor base through participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Robert, for giving us that comprehensive overview of the process and what organizations who may not know what happens to their data after they respond to the questionnaire, for them to now understand how it's actually being used to inform the ESG community. I want to bring Viv into the conversation right now because Viv, you've been working with several organizations who submit to the CSA, and I want to hear your perspective on how they've been actually doing that, how they've been going through the steps that Robert just covered.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Rajiv, and thanks, Robert, for that introduction. So before we get into this section, just to set the stage, obviously, we talked about how technology can help enhance your existing workflows. And today, I'll be able to kind of walk you through the context that we're operating and how it actually comes to life in the platform. So if you're in the audience today, you're most likely either considering doing the CSA, maybe you're already doing it and you're looking for ways to improve it. And the reality of questionnaire season is that not only most sustainability teams are quite lean, but a lot of you are actually coming out of a reporting cycle for either your annual ESG and sustainability reports. So we know that teams are typically running on fumes. And that also kind of touches on the overall organizational fatigue. We know that reporting cycles are quite heavy at the end of the year, but when we get into questionnaire season, it's likely that you might need some internal stakeholders either to validate data that you're going to be publishing or submitting to S&P, or simply actually contribute and collect data again for some of those questions that you're being asked to complete. So stakeholder fatigue is very real. We're aware of that pain point, and it's definitely a challenge that we've seen across customers and the industry in general. Though the S&P portal is definitely super intuitive, the reality is also that there's a lot of collaboration that occurs around questionnaires like the CSA, and a lot of the interactions that go on around contributing to the questionnaire, collaborating with teams internally is quite manual. So here we're talking about potentially reaching out via email threads, asking for supporting evidence, etc. And very quickly we can really get into quite the chaos and the nightmare of version control and making sure that we have the accurate information to publish. And a lot of it ends up also being some copy pasting either directly from your working document to the portal, which we are really trying to mitigate with the solution with technology. And we are talking again about an additional disclosure. So there is definitely some audit risk that comes around being responsible for a questionnaire completion such as the CSA. So if we go into the next slide, now that we've set the stage, what we really want to illustrate today is that Novisto is definitely built and anchored in the reality of sustainability practitioners. When you use a tool like the platform, actually a lot of like Novisto, a lot of our practitioners or customers already use the Novisto tool for annual data collection. So what this does is it really allows you to centralize not only your data, but also your workflows that you can build around using our modules. And in Novisto, we actually have a dedicated questionnaire module, which really, I think, reflects and mirrors the reality and cyclic nature of reporting. And within the questionnaire module, we have very good perks and quite exciting features, such as the data request module. So through the questionnaire module, we're able to actually directly engage with stakeholders if we have to, either for internal review or validation, by sending out questions and engaging with stakeholders that way. A lot of our customers already have SMEs that are familiar with the tool. So it's kind of a win-win at this point. They're familiar with using Novisto for annual reporting. And so sending out data requests for questionnaire is kind of a familiar exercise for them. When I talk about technology here, we're also talking about automation. So I know Robert mentioned the API, that's one facet of it all, but really what we're achieving with using a tool like Novisto for the completion and submission of your CSA is that you're automating a lot of these workflows. You have features to track your progress against your completion, your data collection. Potentially, you can send automated reminders to your participants if they're involved in helping you complete. So really, again, like having that central source, that platform that you operate out of, limiting all of the different maybe tabs that you need to have open to answer this specific questionnaire. And just to add a little bit of the perks in terms of the end to end, we really thought it through. So not only are we digitizing your template, you can work on an active copy. At the very end, we're eliminating any kind of copying pasting that might have occurred in the past by transferring your answers directly to your S&P portal and S&P account through our API. So high level, that's kind of the challenges that we've been able to identify and hopefully solve with the tool. So if we go on the next slide, if we look at it via numbers. So we've actually supported S&P since 2021, but more recently in the last 2 years, we launched our API, which has actually been quite successful among our customers. We've had over 49 customers actually using Novisto to some extent, either completing, tracking their CSA all the way to submission. We cover all of the 62 industry templates, so there's absolutely no challenges there. We can support every single customer in every industry. And of our customers that have used Novisto for the CSA, we've actually seen quite a lot of engagement using our data request module. So really proven value there to engage with stakeholders and really streamline any kind of interaction in a single tool. If we go on the next slide, now that you kind of understand essentially the context, the challenges that we're hoping to solve. I want to walk you through the step by step to really illustrate how easy it is to set you up. And we'll go through some feature demos as well. So on the next slide here, we can break it out in three steps. The first is you obviously have to be an Novisto customer, so that kind of goes without saying. But to get started, we typically ask that you share your historical answers because in the platform, one of the key components of it is being able to keep track of your historical data and your historical answers. So once we have that ingested, you're essentially ready to go. So in Novisto, in the questionnaire module, you'll be able to create your industry template for the current year. You can choose to pre-fill it with last year's answers if that saves you time, and you can start working on it right away. As I mentioned, there is always the option to send it out in data requests to internal stakeholders. What we've seen with some of my customers, at least, is we have sustainability teams kind of do a first pass, pre-fill it or answer it to the best of their ability, and then engage with stakeholders on a must basis in case you need to have internal approvals or get some additional validation there. And then once all of that is ready to go, you have the ability to track your data collection, to monitor your progress. When you get to the very end, when you're ready to actually complete your questionnaire, you have to mark all of your questions as finalized, and you'll actually see on step 3 our beautiful button that allows you to actually send your answers straight to S&P. That's where all of the magic happens. You log in with your S&P credentials, and within a few minutes, you'll have your answers populated in your S&P portal for your final review and final submission. So if we go on the next slide, just to show you how easy it is. So here we're in our questionnaire module. We can select the framework or the questionnaire that we want to answer. You have the drop down for your industry templates. In this animation, you're seeing last year's, but hypothetically this year it would be 2026. You can also pick your business unit or the level at which you're reporting at and decide whether you want to pre-fill your current version with your historical answers. Once the platform loads a little bit, you'll be able to see your template and start working on it right away. So on the next slide, you'll actually be able to see all of the different sections, the questions that follow through right underneath. And within the module in that center panel, as you can see, you can either work on the questions yourself or send your questions out for data request if you need input from additional stakeholders. Just like that. And on the next slide, this is the most exciting part. So of course, I'm making this in a super expedited demonstration, but hypothetically, a few weeks in, when you're done fulfilling all of your questions, you can mark your questionnaires as complete, and you'll have the button sent to S&P at the very top, which will prompt you to log in with your actual S&P credentials, authenticate, and hit submit. And just like that, all of your data will be transferred to S&P, where you can then perform your final, QA and review and finalize your submission for the year. Perfect. Some additional features that I always like to highlight, because of course, Novisto comes with, when you use technology, you also have traceability, auditability of your data. So with every single question, we have these accompanied information panel. The audit trail tracks all of the actions done on a question by which user, when and what was the input. I already touched on the historical data. If you've been answering S&P for the past few years, we can absolutely load those answers in the platform for you to refer to and for your stakeholders as well to refer to once you send them out in data collection. Some of our customers use Novisto for the annual end of year data collection. So we do have the related fields capability as well, which can help you cross-reference potentially data that you already have collected. So that definitely helps to save time. And of course, we also have the guidance for each question attached in the platform, which limits any back and forth that you have to do between tools to refer to some of the additional information to help you answer questions. Perfect. And now to the most exciting part, I'll pass it over to Rajiv and our guest speakers today so you can get some insights on first-hand experience from our customers.
Thank you so very much, Viv. So Robert, you painted the picture of what is S&P and where it fits into an organization's overall sustainability program, the value it delivers. Viv, you covered the how organizations can actually complete the questionnaire and leverage technology to achieve some efficiencies within their data collection process. But all of that is well and good unless we can apply it in the real world. And that's where I want to bring in Natalie and Helena to talk a little bit about the practitioner's perspective and share how they've actually been able to complete and optimize their S&P submission process. So, Natalie and Helena, before we jump into the rapid fire section where we cover a few questions, I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your sustainability programs and your experience with S&P's CSA. So, Natalie, I'll pass to you first.
Thanks so much, Rajiv. And hi, everybody. It's so great to have you joining us this morning or this afternoon, whatever your time zone is. I am Natalie Hoffman. I'm the ESG reporting and disclosure analyst at Columbia Bank. And like I said, or like Rajiv said, I'm going to share my experience. But first, a quick overview. I've been at Columbia Bank and in this role for about 2.5 years now, running the external reporting function, which includes aligning with ESG frameworks, keeping up with regulations, producing our annual corporate citizenship report, and also completing data validation with rating agencies like the S&P. I am based in Seattle, Washington, and previously worked in consulting and limited assurance at PwC, and I've also co-written a book. There are three of us in our Sustainability and Strategic Impact team, which is led by our Director of Strategic Impact, Amy Betts, and supported by our Sustainability and ESG Program Manager, Jordan Bowen. On the Nuiso side, we've got our wonderful Customer Success Manager, Kruti Bam, who is a huge help throughout the year, supporting us with anything we need and sending any feedback we have straight to the Nuvisto product team. So we are very grateful for her as well. We are a US-based company and one of the largest banks headquartered on the West Coast. So the main ESG regulations that we are subject to at the moment are the California Senate Bills 253 and 261. We've been publishing corporate citizenship reports for about 8 years now, and we calculate our scope 1 and 2 and partial categories of scope 3 so far, and reference TCFD, SASB, and GRI in that report. And then lastly, just a quick overview of our history working with Nuvisto. We actually just started working with them a little over a year ago. So last spring, we first implemented our metrics into their system, including 3 years of historical data. And we have recently, last month, completed our first year of data collection for the reporting season that's currently happening. And last summer, I completed the CSA with using Nuvisto for the first time. Before that, I had completed the CSA twice without using Nuvisto, and so I can do a pretty good compare and contrast. And I'll go ahead and pass it over to Helena.
Thank you, Natalie. So, hi everyone, nice meeting you, and I'm so happy to be here today. I'm head globally of HSE and sustainability for the Alimentation Couche-Tard group. I have a team that is spread over the globe, supporting me on both the health, safety, and environment issues, everything from the workplace safety to reporting on all these different types of incidents, to working on the sustainability activities that we do and initiatives, and also the strategy. I have a background as a naval architecture, actually, and you can imagine that is a bit different, but it's all about keeping the planet in a good shape so you can use the oceans for something good and sailing in a really nice old boat. That's my pleasure alongside. I've been working with sustainability for 20 plus years. In the oil industry and now latest in the convenience and mobility industry. So we started the sustainability reporting. We were very streamlined here at the Alimentation Couche-Tard. I'm happy to have Tyra in my team now supporting on that one. And we're working close with Vivian also at Novisto. We actually started using Novisto as one of the first clients. We were one of the first companies to actually using Novisto as a tool for our sustainability journey when we started reporting. And I think you can go to the next slide. So we have been reporting on a global level for since 2018 or 19. That was when we started our reporting. And we have made a global commitment because we are a company that is spread all over the world. We have about 7,000 stores around across the globe. Some of them are our own, others are licensees. But the biggest part of all our stores are our own stores that we have the full operational control of. So we do all the reporting for that. But no matter if you're a licensee or if you're our own store, we want us to be a responsible retailer. So that's something that we're working across all the markets. So if you go to the next slide, I said that we started the journey on the global level in 2018, 2019, and that was actually because we are a family that have come together from many different types of brands. And in 2018, we started to transition a lot of the brands into the Circle K brand, but we also kept the Couche-Tard, that is our the first brand in the family that was started in Montreal. And then we also have a main brand that is named Ingo. We have made a journey of the reporting, and as I said, we were early on with Novisto to use it as a tool that could help us to streamline the way that we gather input from the organization across the globe to our annual reporting. So that's where we started our journey. And the first time when we used it for the S&P CSA reporting was in 2023. So that was also when the journey started, as Vivian mentioned before. So happy to be here to answer on questions on how we have been using the tool for our journey today. So I stop there with telling about myself.
Thank you so very much, Natalie and Helena. I want to jump into some rapid fire questions where we can dig a little deeper into your individual perspectives at your companies. So, Natalie, I want to punt the first question to you. You obviously, as you mentioned, you have that sort of before and after picture of leveraging technology to submit your CSA. What were some of those internal challenges that you faced prior to implementing technology like Novisto when it came to submitting your CSA?
Sure. So my process prior to Navisto was to use Excel, and this might be something a lot of folks can relate to. The spreadsheet shuffle. I would essentially make a big data spreadsheet with everything. I would export from S&P's portal, all of our data points and metrics, and fill it out, our answers there. And I prefer to do this rather than use the S&P portal because, in my opinion, the S&P portal is a little bit slow. It can be kind of sluggish when you're trying to click rapidly between data points. And so I prefer to use Excel where I could get a big picture of all the metrics and also I could click between them a lot faster. And there I could also do a lot of other things. So make comments. I could track opportunities for improvement. And it was a little easier to have my team review because they weren't familiar with the S&P portal at the time. So uh, I would say it worked at the time. The first year filling out the S&P is always going to be the biggest lift. It gets more and more efficient every year that you do it. So my process now compared to then, I'm spending about half the time that I did. And that is the main drawback of using Excel. It's super time consuming. You have to manually build that spreadsheet, manually transfer all that data from Excel back to the portal. You're also finding all the responses, all the answers to all the questions manually as well, because you don't have that handy related fields button in Navisto, and so there were a lot of things that were lacking when I was using it that way, but it was a good way to wrap your head around what S&P is really getting at because you dive deep into the questions doing it yourself. But I think using technology has really added efficiencies in a way that now I have a lot more time for other things, which we all can use a lot more time, I think, in our jobs nowadays.
I appreciate that. Thanks so very much for sharing. So it sounds like you have seen an evolution in the process and that you have seen improvements. Now that you have technology deployed at Columbia to help with this process, what does the process look like now? Do you still rely on Excel at all? Do you have, you mentioned some of the efficiency gains that you experienced. Have you been saving on resources? Is the accuracy improved on your submission, for example? What are some of the other benefits you've seen in the process that you have today?
Yeah, thanks, Rajiv. So I would say the biggest improvement is time, and accuracy is also a huge thing. There was a lot of added risk in my previous process where if I made a mistake, I likely wouldn't catch it. If I missed a question, responded incorrectly, if I transferred the data wrong, copied and pasted wrong. And so, that is all avoided by doing it in Navisto, and I actually don't use Excel at all. I use only Navisto. It's my source of truth for all ESG data, and I use it for exclusively for report production and also for the S&P questionnaire. Um, and so some of the specific things that I like it to use in Navisto for this process is that unlike the S&P portal, it's pretty quick when you're clicking around. There's no kind of lag time with the internet there. The guidance tab and the related metrics tab, or related fields, sorry, that Viv mentioned earlier, those are super handy. I don't have to go searching in PDFs for guidance. I just can quickly reference it and go back to what I was doing. Another thing that actually Viv didn't mention is that there's a search bar, which is surprisingly nice. You can search for metrics even if you don't remember where they are organized by category. You can search for even information within the metric, and so that's really nice. And then there's that audit trail, like I was mentioning, the accuracy of the data, the lowered risk is very, very handy. And so yeah, I think the one thing that I was concerned about when I was switching to Navisto was that I was worried that, the window is only 2 months long to answer all the questions and submit your questionnaire. And so I was worried that the transfer data import process would not go smoothly, and I would end up having to quickly, frantically, manually enter all that data. And so I did want to shout out my customer success manager, Kruti, because while we did not end up having any hiccups, she made sure that everything went smoothly and really kind of handheld me through that first year of submitting. I know it's just a quick button send to SMP, but it is kind of nerve-wracking when it's so much data being imported. And so I was able to hit that button and go and do my spot check in the SMP portal and, make sure that the login worked correctly and all of that worked and submit it over in the SMP portal after that pretty smoothly. And so I think without that kind of help, that really close help from Kruti, I wouldn't have felt so confident in doing that submission process. And so I do recommend making a little extra time before you submit, maybe a few days before the deadline or a week before the deadline, especially in that first year to make sure that everything goes smoothly. Like I said, nothing bad happened with mine, but it's good to just have a little bit of, just in case time.
No, that's totally fair. I mean, I hope Kriti's ears are ringing right now. Glad we were able to provide that support, Natalie, and that the process has been smooth. I don't think there's a better statement that I can hear as a technology developer than I'm no longer using Excel at all. That sentence speaks magnitudes, I think, to the value that you're getting out of this. I want to bring Helena into the conversation. So Helena Kushar is the scale is ginormous. As you said, it's a global brand, thousands of locations around the world. Collecting data and streamlining that process, technology must obviously play a part, I want to say, but I imagine you also had a before and after state when you probably were not using technology versus using technology now. Can you walk us through, can you share some insights on what your CSA process looks like now and what benefits or improvements you've seen since leveraging tech?
Yeah, I would maybe say that it's not about when we started to use the Novisto for the CSA that made a big difference for us. It's actually made a big difference when we started using Novisto, as we were a big company across the globe and with all the different persons across the globe having different types of knowledge about initiatives or different types of things that wasn't aggregated up to the top. So we started using Novisto, as I said, mentioned before, to get all the good initiatives gathered from our business units across, at that time, 27 countries. Now it's like 29 countries. So we were just trying to get everything into one place. We were first years using a lot of Excels for that work, and that was of course not optimal because you didn't get the audit trail on that, and that's something that we have been very helpful to have that in Novesto. I think also what we did was to sort of gather all our publicly available or the documents that we published those first years. So the financial reporting and documents and the management proxies and all those types of documents, as well as sort of our own library in Novisto, has also helped, because then we can reference the right type of documents in a much easier way. So I would say we went from probably somewhere in our big organization, in some of the business units, there are someone having an Excel sheet, but when we're aggregating things to the top on a global level, that's what we're trying to not using that specifically for these types of data that is relevant for our storytelling about how we are evolving on our sustainability journey. So when we decided to disclose to the CSA ourselves, it was quite easy for us to just use the Novisto as building up on what we had requested from the subject matter experts across the organization to answer on the questions in the CSA. So that's how we used it. We used actually what we had gathered for the annual reporting, and not the other way around, like trying to gather input to the CSA from our subject matter experts. And then as the journey have evolved over these 3 years, we have also made it easier to Novista have made it easier for us to also, for the certain types of questions that we haven't covered in our annual reporting, to request input from our subject matter experts also to that. So I think we started in another place on the journey than Natalie did, but we perfectly see the same types of positive experience. It has been, we have grown with Novisto since 2020, and it has been people walking through as our support. And now with Vivian, I know that Vivian and Tyra have been working very close together. So the support that we get to be held hands in the last weeks of before you submit, I think that's definitely crucial. And I think that's also something that we really have a good experience of, that Novisto is ensuring that we as a company have a good journey. There have been obstacles with other types of also submissions that we have had to solve together, but it's about working together and collaborating in hard times as well. So I would just say that this has definitely made it much easier for us as a company, and also over the time, our subject matter experts across the globe has been used to get an email from Novisto as well, and our IT systems are letting them through correctly as well. So.
That's always a very positive thing to hear. I think you highlighted a key point. I mean, the platform does more than just the CSA, right? Many of our clients, just as you're experiencing, are using the platform to respond to multiple disclosures and fulfill various requirements, whether they're voluntary or regulatory. And the CSA is a very important questionnaire that we have within the system, but not the only one. So thanks for pointing that out, Helena. Really appreciate it. So you both presented what, your teams look like, and for someone listening, and it might sound like you have all of this under control in a nice, neat box that you just get to collect data for your submission, prepare a submission, and send it off in a smooth process. But we know that's not the truth. There are many other stakeholders who are involved in updating the responses that you have year over year. So to Natalie first, what has the feedback been like from your stakeholders who are involved in supporting your submission process? Are you getting pushback? Are you getting encouragement? How are you getting, for example, those data collectors engaged in your process to update your responses?
Sure. So I actually ask my internal subject matter experts, I'm probably going to use the word SMEs, for the S&P related data, not in the summer when we're filling out the questionnaire, but actually in the winter when we are doing our report production. But this information still applies regardless. So, like I said, we just finished our first year with data collection with Navisto. And we did get a lot of feedback, and it was overwhelmingly positive, I would say. For example, we received one comment from a director who said it was clear that my team had worked really hard so that her team could have it really easy. And I really appreciated that. I think I think what people really want to know ultimately is that you respect their time, you know that their time is valuable, and and there are a lot of things you can do with your metrics in Navisto, which is what makes Navisto unique, that shows them that effort. For example, you can customize your metrics to simplify language, to make it unique to them, unique to your organization, and make it very clear what you're asking. You can limit the data points you're asking of them, um, either by limiting how many voluntary disclosures you're responding to, or even just by doing as much collecting information and collecting as you can by yourself. For example, using public disclosures such as the 10K or the proxy to gather information and just getting their review instead of asking them for all the information up front. Um, they also really love the historical data and guidance tabs. They love to see what they said last year. They don't remember. They know you asked them last year for this information, but they don't remember what they gave you and where they pulled it from and what queries they ran. And if you can provide that to them, they really, really appreciate that because then they don't have to do that thinking from scratch over again. And so we have worked really hard on the platform to make it as easy as possible for our SMEs, and they told us they appreciate that. A few did say that the platform felt a little overwhelming because it breaks up every data point into really bite-sized chunks, but that can end up being a lot of data points. And I think for that, I think what you really want to do is guide them to those historical data tabs and reassure them that, look, we're asking for everything we can. We're asking for
Yeah.
everything we want, and you need to provide just what you can to us, and we'll get back to you if we need more. But what you provide to us, I guess actually one other thing is that they want to know what they're providing you are going to use.
Yeah.
We had some feedback that if we're going to provide you, we're going to spend hours gathering this data. We're going to give you all this information, and then what? It's just going to sit there. You're not going to put it in your report. Are you going to send it to anybody? And so if you can make sure that you're going to do something with that data, you're going to either publish it, you're going to send it to SMP with the non-public disclosure, the private disclosure side, whatever it is, you're making use of it and you can reassure them the time you're spending on it is useful, is practical. It's raising our score by this much. The executives are looking at that score and they see
Yeah.
that you're contributing to that. You know, there's a lot of ways that you can talk about it with them to help them understand what ESG is, why you need this information. You know, you got to educate them on what this whole thing is because they don't know. They're busy. They have
Yeah.
other jobs, and I respect that a lot. And I think that goes a long way.
And feeling like part of the program is key to getting buy-in year over year, right? Like you said, people don't just want to know that their efforts are dying at the end of a process. They want to know that it's contributing to something bigger. Helena, I'm curious, do you have a similar experience or a different experience with stakeholders on your side?
No, I think it's similar with what Natalie said, and I think that as I mentioned this issue with our IT system because sometimes we as a company also put obstacles on the way, and there was a time when we integrated some more tough IT security regulations on our side. So suddenly someone didn't get the emails from the wisdom. We thought that they had been sent, but all those things, of course, were just like jumps on the road. I would say that the how the tool have evolved over time. The SMEs are happy with the tool. Maybe on our side, there might be people on a more regional level that have several different responsibilities within their role, so they get very several of the requests, and that of course can be overwhelming. But in the end, when you go through it, and also with the training sessions, I think that Vivian and Tyra have been given to for the subject matter experts as a startup for the our reporting season has been really good as well to help our subject matter experts to both those that have been in the system before, but also those that are new, to get a smooth start of the reporting season and to using the tool. And then I just want to echo this historical, being able to looking at the historical data is really something that is really much used also from our side. So that's very a really good one. And then also to benchmarking towards peers, looking into what they have publicly stated is also something that is really good to be inspired to take the next steps on our sustainability journey.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, training and those sort of everboarding components of a sustainability program are quite important. And it's very important to us at Navisto that we partner with you all to maintain that relationship. So shout out to Viv and all our other customer success managers who, as you all said on your own, feel part of your teams. Like you all have claimed our CSMs as part of your teams. And I
They're
think that's
mine now.
testament. I think that's testament to the partnership that we have between our organizations. So I think we have time for one more question before we need to switch over to Q&A. I'm going to make this question just a little bit more difficult for you though, Natalie and Helena, but don't panic. I'm going to ask if you can share one best practice for any of the attendees that are listening in or might look at this recording after. If you can each share just one best practice with them, anyone who's thinking of automating their S&P submission process. You both painted pictures of what that manual version looked like before and how you've seen growth and change. What's one tip you would share with someone listening in who's considering switching to automated processes?
Yeah, I'll go first. I would say work up front to build once and then use every year. So, for example, I have my team do an internal review of some metrics before submitting to S&P. I built those requests out one time the first year, last year, and I'm going to just go ahead and have them review the same metrics again next year. And so if you do a lot of work up front to customize what you think you're going to need for your organization, then you're probably pretty golden. You might need to do a quick review, but you just have to do it one time and then you can automate it, which has been I'm looking forward to this next year because I've been doing the building this last year, and next year it'll just be using.
Yeah, I think I had a similar one, but and I think we mentioned it all. I think you need to have time in the end to actually go through and ensure that you have everything appropriate from your own side, so that you can give the Novisto team as well the timing they need to support you on the transition of the data. So I think it's important to first do your own things appropriately, have everything you need, put that into the system if you're going for this Novista system, and also work together with the Novista team to ensure that you get everything transitioned. Because it's, of course, when you transition things from one system to another, things can happen, and you need time to just go through it also on the S&P CSA platform before you finally submit, and also to ensure that you get the uploads of all the different types of documents appropriate as well. So I would say hold the hand in the end.
Which we're very happy to. I hope that's a fantastic point of inspiration that we can wrap up the practitioner's perspective on. Thank you so very much for sharing, Natalie and Helena. So we're coming close to the end of the webinar. There you've heard from now, you've heard from S&P, you've heard from Robert at S&P, you've heard from Natalie and Helena who are in the thick of things, and you heard from Viv, who is sort of that conduit connecting the practitioners to the actual submission process. Kate, can we jump back just one slide? If you are thinking about getting started then with accelerating your S&P submission using Navisto, it's a simple process. Our practitioners outline that process. We can take your 2025 responses. You work with our CSM to pre-fill your 2026 template. Then you use the workflows within our system, which both Natalie and Helena spoke to help update those responses where they need updating, and then hit that big, beautiful send to S&P or submit to S&P button. We know it can be nerve-wracking, but it's meant to simplify the process to then make sure that the folks over at S&P get your submission that's accurate and in a timely manner. And then you can focus on more on other ESG strategies that you need to implement across your business. So I want to say thank you to all our presenters. But before we wrap up the session, I actually want to switch over to Q&A. And Robert, I'm probably going to put you in the hot seat for a little bit, if that's okay. We've had some questions come in through the chat, and I had some other questions as well that we've been getting throughout the registration process. My first question that I want to ask Robert, if it's okay, for companies looking to improve their scores, you spoke a little bit about how scores are prepared. For companies looking to improve their scores, what is the most common mistake that you've seen in terms of how they submit their data, and if you have any tips on how they can actually avoid those mistakes?
Uh, it's mixing different things here. In the questions where we ask for supporting evidence, companies sometimes attach like 12 different documents and not tell us where exactly to find what we're looking for. That doesn't help. So I think technically we now limited it to 5 documents, which is still plenty, but in the end, we need one piece of evidence. So whatever you think is the best evidence you can provide that with a clear indication it is on page 15 or 75, so that you can make sure that the analyst looking at this actually finds the location of the information that you intend to be found. Read the questions carefully. There is additional question guidance that I'm sure you also have copied in the platform that is in the CSA portal, where you click. I can only speak about the portal. You click on top of every question, and it opens the rationale. That is important. I think Natalie said that to share with your subject matter experts why this data point actually matters, how sustainability and business strategy is linked. So for the motivation, why should we participate? But it also provides data requirements, data definitions, because how you might understand the data point might be different from how we understand it. We ask in a global context, so always make sure to check that before submission. And then also you can reach out to us, please not to my personal email, but to csa@snpglobal.com for any questions on the methodology and its applicability to your specific business case. So we do have industry-specific approaches, but if you think something does not apply to your business case, reach out to us ahead of time so that we can agree to that, so that you don't get a surprise. Sometimes companies click not applicable because they don't have it, which of course is not a reason to click not applicable.
Thank you so very much for sharing that, Robert. Kate, can you hop back to slide number 26, please, if that's okay? I just wanted to bring back up the visual again. So to our attendees, when Robert was referencing the guidance, we do have the guidance built into the platform, which is the last blue arrow that you're seeing at the bottom of the screen here. So we're simplifying that process of making sure you submit to S&P information that's relevant and accurate and within the scope of what S&P is actually looking for in the CSA. So I do know we have a few other questions in the Q&A, but we are at time, so we will take those questions offline. Any unanswered questions, we'll take them offline, get back to you all with written responses I want to thank you all, Viv, Robert, Helena, Natalie. Thank you so very much for sharing your perspectives. It was a lot of information to put into 1 hour, but I feel like you've been able to tell us a story of helping someone who has doubts about completing their CSA and simplifying that process for them. If you have any additional questions to our attendees, please don't hesitate to reach out to us here at Novisto. As a reminder, the recording will be sent out along with the slides. So thank you so very much to our presenters. Thank you so very much to our participants and registrants. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.